We're going to first start with the anime review of the week, and the review is for Beck, Mongolian Chop Squad. Now, before I actually get into the anime itself, let's go through a little backstory of how I even watched Beck, why I chose to watch it. Basically, a couple years ago, I watched Angel Beats, which I really enjoyed, and one of the aspects of Angel Beats that I enjoyed was the musical slash band elements to it. It's not a major point in the story, but I believe with episode 1 and 3, and I guess later on also with Yui, there was like a band called, I think it's called Monster Girl something. I'm probably getting that wrong. It doesn't matter what the band's name was, but anyhow, I watched that anime and I was like, okay, I gotta watch more shows that have more band theme to it. So I watched K-On!, I saw Nana. I think I want to watch, was it Uline April is one I'm interested in, and of course Beck is another example of a band anime, and so I figured, hey, let's go watch that one. It's people are saying like K-On! Is they're never gonna become like a big famous band, whereas Beck is actually based on a small group becoming famous. So I was like, okay, I'll watch that one since K-On! Was more of a fun slice of life. This one's more of a serious tone. Not to say there is no slice of life moments in Beck, because there are, but you understand what I'm saying? Like one was more like a kind of a carefree, fun adventure. This one's like, no, we want to become famous, we want to become big. Take this seriously. So that's the contrast between the two shows, and ultimately that's why I wanted to jump into Beck. Okay, now got the prelude out of the way, let's actually get into the review. So Beck is about a character named Kayuki, and Kayuki is a average middle school student, I guess. I mean, what does average really mean? But he's your typical average anime protagonist where he's kind of like sick of the world and he's bored of stuff, except for music. He loves music, but school, he's kind of bored of that. And so he meets this character named Ryusuke, and obviously there's a lot of things that take place between what I'm saying and this event. But again, it's a synopsis, a quick summary, so don't expect me to spoil the whole story. And I'm not going to, because this is a non-spoiler review. Anywho, he meets Ryusuke once, and when he does, he sees his dog named Beck. Now, Beck's a strange-looking dog. It has like eye patches, and it looks almost like a Frankenweenie, if that's even a term. I think that was actually a movie, Frankenweenie. If it was that Tim Burton? I don't remember. Anyhow, he reminds me like kind of Frankenweenie because it's a dog with like patches. It's a very strange creature. Anyhow, he runs into Ryusuke a second time, and when he does the second time, he went with his friends to a bowling alley. Then after that, they went off to, I guess, get drinks at a bar or something like that. And on their way out, they ran into a bunch of thugs who were threatening them. And Ryusuke kind of told these guys, hey, don't mess with these people. We'll take it out on the back. We'll go to the alley or something. And then eventually, Kayuki felt bad, so he went to go and help out. Of course, by the time he gets there, Ryusuke is already beaten up. But still, he wanted to help him out. And that whole scene is really funny because Ryusuke pulls out a gun and he says some expletive words. And I'm like, whoa, this show says the F word a lot, unapologetically. And for some reason, I'm like, it just works. And we'll get into that later on in the review. But that's kind of the setup. He meets Ryusuke. He learns that Ryusuke loves music, especially Dying Breed, which is a band that Kayuki absolutely loves. So they kind of bond over that. Eventually, he learns that Ryusuke is actually a really awesome guitar player. And so Kayuki wants to join him to form a band, a famous band, which they do. And they end up calling Beck, spoiler alerts, or more importantly, roll credits. So he joins the band called Beck. But to do that, he had to learn how to play guitar. So the guy who teaches him how to play guitar, named Saito, also happens to be a good swimmer. So Kayuki learns how to become a good swimmer and a good guitar player. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Now, even though he knows how to play guitar, his actual trait, what he's really good at, is singing. And there's a scene where he sings to Chiba, who's one of the best characters in the story, maybe the best character. And Chiba's response, which I won't say again because expletives, but it was like, whoa, again, the swearing, and it's just so unapologetic, but it just felt raw and natural at the same time. So they were so impressed by his ability to sing that Kayuki became one of the singers of the group. Chiba is the other one. And that's kind of how the band forms. And throughout the entire story, you see this band go from like a kind of like a unknown quantity, and they're simply performing at small shows here and there. And eventually they go to like the top. And how they get there and the journey to it is really exciting. There's even like this one character they meet when he goes to high school, who is voiced by John Yon Bosch. I forgot his name. Oh wait, I'm looking right now. Yuji, yes. I gotta listen to the left of me because it's hard to remember all these characters' names. But anyways, Yuji, who again voiced by John Yon Bosch, is a drummer because their drummer left, and so he ended up taking over for him. And so they form this band. They're performing in different places. They build a following. It's a really interesting story. He also meets a girl named Maho. I forgot to mention her earlier, who is the sister of Ryusuke, and she's a very interesting character. And we'll get into my thoughts on her a little later in the review. But so you got all the elements together of like a, he's going through high school and there's some conflicts in there. For example, there's a bullies who attack him, for obvious reasons because they're bullies. Although the younger brother actually plays guitar, and so they kind of form a friendship, even though they initially hate each other. And Chiba actually defends him against the bigger bully, and it's so funny because, again, Chiba's he's a very expressive guy. We'll say that much. If you watch Beck, Chiba is a very expressive guy. He'll just say the F word this and F word that. He does not care. So what I just love about it is that he defends him, and he eventually, those, like I said, the bullying him, they eventually become friends, which was a nice little add-on to the story. There's also a side conflict, not to go full details with this one, where basically Ryusuke pissed off some people, and I'm not going to say who or why, and there's a whole side plot with that. So there's a lot of little things going on here and there, but the main point of the story is simply this band growing from kind of an unknown quantity to a mainstay, even getting like music. And one of the best parts about like their songs, you get to find out why it's called Mongolian Chop Squad. And it's one of the funniest scenes in this anime, and that's I guess we can transition to that. This story is very funny, but not always for the right reasons. But it's extremely funny, especially the every time his characters swear in the story. Again, like I think besides like Black Lagoon, I can't think of an anime that had as much swearing as Beck did. I mean, every character just loves to. Even Kayuki goes crazy sometimes with the swearing. And remember, this is Greg Ayres. If you don't know, I watched it dub, obviously, if I'm mentioning an English voice actor. Craig Ayres, he voiced, what was it, Nagisa and Free and Sunahara and Clannad. So he's always played these wimpy characters. So to see him play first of all, main character, which is well-deserved, but also a wimpy character that actually stands up for himself is definitely a nice change of pace. So I definitely like that part of the story. I like all the characters in the story. They all seemed real and likable, and I don't think anyone inherently is bad in the story. Well, okay, there's a couple people, but the main characters, I understand like their gripes. They go through a lot of infighting in certain parts of the story, which made sense to me given how everyone has different conflicts and of interest they're working on. And so I kind of like that. Everyone kind of felt like real characters. Everyone has said that this anime, and I would agree to this, they all feel like real people when you're watching it. There's no like caricatures. There's no people who are being hyperbolic for sake of being hyperbolic. Everyone just felt real and authentic. And even though maybe some parts are obviously unrealistic, obviously becoming successful and famous isn't like that possible, but their journey to there made sense. Kayuki's journey from going from a shy, wimpy kid to someone who stands up for himself, and even does something crazy in the story, which I won't say what it is, but I was like, whoa. Even his own band members were like, I could have never done that. And when you watch the story from like day one or episode one till now, you can't believe he did either. So you feel like you kind of grew with him as well. And it's a very, it's nice progress. There's funny scenes in it. Like besides the swearing, there's like just subtle moments where the acting is perfect. I watched the dub, like I said, and the dubbing for this show is excellent. I might even argue this is one of the best dubs I've ever watched of any anime, which is kind of surprising because I've seen a lot. I just feel like every actor put their all into it. Like there are certain scenes where characters had to express how they felt, angrily or in sadness, and it was authentic. There are many anime I've watched, even like the big ones, where it just didn't felt that way. One quick example was when I watched Bleach. There's a famous scene where Ichigo goes crazy. I won't say why because you haven't watched it. And the one who played Orihime, who she's a very good voice actress, she's done a lot of great roles in her life, but it didn't feel very authentic. It was kind of like, she's supposed to like, she's going to die and she's Ichigo to come in there and save him. And her tone seemed very, it wasn't like, you need to come help me or I'm going to die. It was more like, well, I mean, if you come tomorrow or maybe next week, I'll be okay. It wasn't as serious. But in Beck, when the characters get angry, it's very authentic and it never felt over the top. It was perfect. This dub was fantastic, which is kind of sad too because I don't think most people watch the show or will watch the show, which is, it is what it is. I would obviously, in case you can't tell, I obviously recommend this anime. I definitely enjoyed it. Now, I want to discuss some possible negative things about the story. The first thing I would say is, and this is going to surprise everyone when I say this, there is a little bit of fan service in this story. Now, it's not, which by the way, pissed me off. Now, the fan service is not like a typical ecchi story like High School of the Dead or Rosario Vampire. I don't know. There's like so many. There's like new one I saw recently when it comes to ecchi. It was about this. What was it? There's the world's coming to an end or something, and they need this guy to reproduce all these women. Right. So it's not like a typical ecchi type of fan service. But it still was uncomfortable at the same time. Basically, Maho's character, and again, I was saying in the beginning, like I have mixed feelings about her, but basically, Maho is, I believe she's 16 years old. I can confirm that. Let me just check her profile real quick. I believe she's 16. She might be 14 at the time because this story takes place between like middle school and high school. So let me just click on her name real quick here. Okay, she's 14 years old, which is, okay, that's even worse than what I thought. So she's 14 years old, and she posts in her like underwear for magazines. And I understand that Japan, the standards for consent and all that stuff is lower than America, but I'm not gonna lie and tell you that I was like completely comfortable looking at a 14-year-old posing in her underwear. And I don't know why the show had to go this direction. I know that Maho and Ryusuke aren't exactly the high ground for morality. They do a lot of things in the story that are definitely not. But I don't know why they had to go that route with the character. There's even the guy who actually trains Kayuki to swim, Saito. He actually has a bunch of like women pictures because he's kind of pictures of women. What I meant to say, he's kind of a pervert. Although he does get a girlfriend towards the end. That's not a huge spoiler. You'll forget about it since I said it. Anyhow, he has a photos of Maho actually in her underwear, and I'm thinking, what's more disturbing, the fact that Maho took these photos, or the fact this guy has these photos? In either way you look at it, it was kind of disturbing. I don't think it was necessary for the story. I understand this is a sign-in. I assume it's a sign-in, so the mature content is kind of, I guess, expected par for the course. But I don't know if putting her, helped or not. I think she's sexually promiscuous. I can't confirm that in the story because they never fully stated it, but you can kind of tell based on her behavior, like she'll go from one person to another, at least as friends. I don't know if she's doing more than that. So it's a gray area. This is obviously a very nitpicky thing, and also it's going to vary from person to person. Some people might watch a story and not look at it or even care. This is just something that bothers me when I'm watching it. And the other thing, too, with the fan service, not really a fan service thing, but when she goes to Kayuki's house in a certain episode, I won't say which one or what the reasons, Ryusuke gives Kayuki like a condom to bang his sister. Now, this is weird, I guess. I don't know if it's a bad or a good thing, but usually when you watch anime, siblings are generally very protective over others, especially in romantic entanglements. And keep in mind that, Ryusuke and Maho don't have like parents in their lives. I forgot what the reason was, but their parents, they live with their grandmother. So there's no like father figure. So Ryusuke is kind of a father figure to Maho, sort of. It's complicated. They don't really like each other either. It's a very strange relationship. But anyhow, for him to tell Kayuki, here's some condoms, bang my sister, I don't even care. I wasn't expecting that. I've never seen that in an anime before, so that was kind of weird. Again, it's one thing where it's like I'm noticing stuff you probably didn't. So that's more of a personal preference. One more I guess I'll mention is that there's a certain, so Kayuki, I forgot to mention, he's like, there are different women he could have ended up with in this story. It's not a harem, okay, it's not a harem, but there are like 3 women in the story who he really liked, and I think they liked him equally, and he could have picked anyone to be with. He picked one, and I wasn't happy with that decision. I felt like the person he picked wasn't kind to him. Often throughout the story, she would lead him astray, got him embarrassed a couple times. She was with him for convenience. It didn't feel like it was the right person. I know nobody would ever watch a video on this, but I would love to do a discussion on the relationship between him and the girl he chose, and discuss like why it's not a good choice for him, and if he grew a spine and stood up for himself. Which unfortunately, Kayuki, as much as I like the character, I won't lie, if you tell him to do something and you have enough authority, he'll listen to you. That's one of the problems with him. Like he stands up for himself in terms of like people attacking him, but he's still easily persuaded to do all kinds of stuff which he probably shouldn't be doing. That's just me looking at it from like a top, which is, I guess, is a fair perspective. Maybe it's not. So again, these are all personal things I didn't like. Now, I think more of an objective thing. Again, nothing's really objective here, but the ending of this story wasn't very good. I'm not going to say why it wasn't good, but it wasn't good. And if you're going to watch the story, just keep in mind the ending is not going to be satisfactory. You're going to walk away very disappointed. And it's not just because the manga, as you know, maybe you don't know, but it wasn't finished when they finished the anime. It's a classic problem in all these stories. like Claymore or even the original Fullmetal Alchemist. Pick the show you want where the manga was ongoing and the anime wasn't finished, so they had to come up with some BS way to end the story. Normally, these shows would do like a slice of life ending of some sort, where they don't really progress the story, but they show everyone's kind of having a good time, and so it's like the classic read the manga to learn more. But with Beck, they chose an even lazier approach, and I couldn't believe they ended the story the way they did. If they were going to go that approach, they should have just ended it 2 episodes ago, or change the story if they wanted to. I mean, hate Fullmetal Alchemist or really hate or despise it, but at least they made a brand new story that had an ending. It wasn't the greatest ending, but at least they ended the story. If they had no intention to wait for Beck to finish the manga, then they should have just made their own ending or something. Because I was very annoyed because they were clearly building up to something, and the ending was just it wasn't too great. Now, to be fair, I'm judging the anime's ending, not the manga's ending, so I like to read that and find out how that ended. Which, by the way, the manga is now finally finished. So if they ever want to go back and, Brotherhood the story, they totally could, and I would really appreciate if they did. But they won't, because no one knows what Beck even is, as it is for most of these anime. And because of that, I was going to give the anime originally a 9 out of 10, because I absolutely loved it, aside from my own personal nitpicks with it. But unfortunately, they, because of that ending, at least of the anime, I have to give it at least an 8 out of 10, which is still very good. I mean, I still recommend the story, just came on the ending is going to be a little disappointing, but it's still one of the most realist anime I've ever watched, one of the best dubs I've ever watched, one of the most down-to-earth story, down-to-earth characters, situations that I felt were very relatable. Many times the character would talk about topics. I'm like, yeah, I personally can not feel you, but I guess it's where I feel you for your situation, or empathize with these people, even though they're not even real characters. And there's just certain moments you're like, wow, it's just really good character growth. It's a very short anime too. I think it's like 26 episodes, and it's on Funimation if you want to watch it. And it's for free, by the way. You don't have to pay a subscription for dub or sub, which is always a nice thing. So that's my thoughts on Beck. I definitely don't regret watching it. It was a really good story. And compared to something like last week's review, like Baccano, where that's a very depressing mecha mind break, this is more of a fun slice of life with some serious moments to a serious tone to it, where these characters are going to start a band and become famous. And one more thing I forgot to mention before I end the review: the intro to Beck is phenomenal. It's one of the best intros anime, period. If I ever did like a top 20, 30, I don't know how many best intros, Beck would be on there. I never skipped it once. It's a very catchy song. The visual imagery is hilarious. It tells a story within a story. And I love intros that do that. Some intros, unfortunately, they take the lazy route and just show highlights from the story. Beck didn't do that. Very good, underrated anime. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Beck.